Hello and welcome back to Transfermarkt and to another daily transfer news live stream. I'm joined again by Ewan to discuss the big stories of the last couple of days, and the biggest one to start with is about Bayern Munich and Germany forward Jamal Musiala, who has said he is happy at the Bundesliga club despite links with Manchester City, and reports further suggest that he is set to sign a lucrative new contract with the Bundesliga club, and he's going to make a lot of money, is what they're saying. Ewan, he's a player who I don't think you need statistics to talk about how good he is. I will give you just one statistic because it is phenomenal. He's 85 goal contributions in 174 games for Bayern Munich. Considering he came into the team having never played first team football before, it's a brilliant record to have. But I think on my end anyway, there's certainly no surprise that he wants to keep his time at Bayern Munich continuing.
Yeah, and he's young enough where he can spend maybe a couple more years in Germany before making the move to the Premier League. I think, or I say Premier League, maybe perhaps one of the big two in Spain as well, because that's the only place you can go up from Bayern Munich. But he will need to sign a new contract for the summer because his deal only runs until 2026. So if no contract's agreed this summer, I'm positive that Bayern wouldn't want him running down his contract into his last year and losing an asset which is potentially, how much would he go for in the market? Upwards of 150 million euros probably, if Musiala was available. So they wouldn't want to risk losing him for free. So it would need to be sorted before the end of the season. But from what Musiala is saying, there could be a real chance of that happening. And I think it does make sense to maybe develop a couple more years in the Bundesliga. Perhaps the main aim for Bayern will be to try and go deep in the Champions League and ultimately win that. And they are favourites for the Bundesliga, every season, albeit they didn't win it last year. But yeah, I think this would make sense. The noises coming out of his camp are positive in terms of an extension at Bayern Munich. He's a phenomenal player. I'd love to see him come to the Premier League. Maybe it's a little bit biased because we watch it more in the UK than we watch the Bundesliga, but really test himself in what is, respect the Bundesliga, a more challenging league.
And we spoke yesterday about Thomas Muller and his time at Bayern Munich potentially coming to an end, and how this new crop of players coming through for Bayern will become so much more important. I know they're already incredibly important, but Jamal Musiala is going to be the centre of that, in my opinion. Every now and then a footballer comes along who just looks like he plays the game with the ball on a string. Like there's another force controlling the ball for him, and Jamal Musiala is one of those players. His dribbling ability, his close ball control, his passing is absolutely sensational. I remember a pass last season. I think they were away to Bochum, and he played this incredible ball with the outside of his boot through to Harry Kane, and the Englishman ended up missing the chance. But just the way Musiala can play with the ball, the way he can manipulate it to do whatever he wants to do is something that's a real joy to watch. And he's starting to fully reap the rewards for that. He scored his first hat-trick for the club in the cup against Mainz on Wednesday, and he's still, of course, young. He's still only 21 years of age. He's going to go from strength to strength, and even though there is likely to be a new contract there, I don't think that'll turn any clubs away from keeping an eye on him and trying to get something in the pipeline for the future, because he has the potential to be one of the best in this new era of players that's coming through. The next story: Manchester United could rival Liverpool for Wolves' 23-year-old Algerian wingback Rayan Ait-Nouri. I think from a United perspective, this makes a lot of sense. It's no secret they're in the market for a left back with the injury concerns that Terrell Malacia and Luke Shaw have experienced for quite a while now, and a very appealing factor to Ait-Nouri is that he's only missed 5 Premier League games since the start of last season. He does play a lot of football, and he isn't a player that's particularly injury prone. From a United perspective, do you think this is a move that they should be excited about?
It's definitely a pitch need to address. Shaw and last year's availabilities, a huge problem for Eric Ten Hag, and it would probably continue to be, especially in the case of Luke Shaw, where I think everyone realises when he's fit, when he's fully fit, he's one of the best left backs in the world. I don't think anyone would contend that. You see how important he is for England when he comes back. He's a quality footballer, technically excellent, quick, strong. He does have it all, but he's just not fit enough. He's constantly injured, and it's a real shame because a lot of that does come down to that horrific double leg break he had against PSV, 10 odd years ago. That's really kind of set him back, and he's still dealing with complications for that. So I do feel for him. Malacia, it's a bit of an unknown. So that left back position is interesting. However, you mentioned that Ait-Nouri's probably preferred position as a wing back, which might appeal to the incoming manager Ruben Amorim, who plays a 3-4-3. I'm actually fascinated to see what he does, because I think he could play a winger out there. You've seen that at the moment with Quenda, the young Portuguese superstar wonder kid who plays on the right at Sporting. He's naturally a winger who's been converted. So I don't know if you could perhaps see someone like Alejandro Garnacho playing off that left, almost as a wing back with the license to get forward. So it'd be really interesting to see what Amrin wants to do there. But I do think that bringing in a player who's comfortable playing a little bit higher as a wing back makes perfect sense. As for Ait-Nouri, really good player. Wolves are really struggling this season. Whenever you watch him, he's a standout performer. And again, I think Liverpool will look at it as well, because they've probably got an issue coming on at left back in the next, 2 seasons, where I think Andy Robertson's been outstanding, one of the best in the world over the last 5 years, but I think his performances are starting to decline a little bit. You see that Slot does bring him out the side a bit more than Klopp used to as well. So I think that's an area Liverpool will look to address. So yeah, he's going to be a player in demand, because he's also shown he can do it in the Premier League.
Ait-Nouri's got 3 goals and 2 assists in the Premier League this season, which after 9 games is already his best return in any Premier League season, and this is 5th. And what surprised me is actually he's played over 100 Premier League games. I didn't think he'd been around for that long, so he's clearly experienced at this level. And in a situation this season where his team is really struggling, like you mentioned, he has stepped up. He's been a standout player for Gary O'Neill, and he's been involved with 42% of Wolves' goals from left wing back. I think there's a really special player there. Still only 23 years of age, and it does feel as though he will get a move to a more competitive team in the Premier League sometime soon. And if it could be under Amorim at Manchester United, I think he could be in for a very, very exciting next period in his career. Another potential move within the Premier League is Carlos Baleba, and he reportedly could be heading to Arsenal, as he's been identified as a target for Mikel Arteta. Baleba is another player on a long list of recruitment victories for Brighton and the scouting team they have in place at the Amex Stadium. And look, Baleba wasn't exactly an unknown player. He was playing at Lille before they brought him in, but I think wherever Baleba ends up, I think Brighton will make quite a sizable profit on the €27 million investment that they've made. And I just think Baleba is a profile that really, really fits a Mikel Arteta midfield, and he's completely well-rounded. He's really good defensively. He's really good offensively on the ball as well, and kind of progressing the ball. I think it's something that would fit very, very well into that number 8 position that Arteta has in that midfield. Do you think Baleba would be the right player to add to that midfield?
If they can get him, yeah, fantastic player. He came in as Caicedo's replacement, didn't he, last summer from Lille. I think his first year in the Premier League was a little bit indifferent. He was kind of in and out the side. He didn't really show his quality all the time, but he's obviously settled in his first season, gained that experience, had a good pre-season under a new manager. He's been outstanding this season. I think he's been one of the best central midfielders in the league. It might go under the radar sometimes because he plays for Brighton, but when you watch him play, he's got everything. He generally does have everything. He reminds me slightly of Paul Pogba, stylistically at times, and a little bit more controlled and maybe a little bit less flamboyant, but he's a top player. I think it's only a matter of time until the big clubs come in and try and take him off Brighton. I think his market value is at 22 million euros. It's going to take a lot more than that to sign him. I think Brighton paid in excess of that to get him in. I think it was about close to 30 million euros when add-ons were included. So yeah, he's a investment player for Brighton. He's been outstanding this season, and yeah, I think Arsenal's midfield is really good at the moment, but there's always room for improvement. They've also brought in Mike Merino in the summer to add to that. We've not really seen too much of him and how he's going to fit into Arsenal's setup. Declan Rice is obviously the main guy in there. Odegaard, when he comes back, Wanyeri's coming through the system as well. Is a really top prospect. So yeah, I think if Baleba could come in, maybe if they were to lose someone like Thomas Partey, for example, they could bring in Baleba, then that'd be really good business. Trading in, a player at a similar level who's much younger.
Do you think a move to Arsenal would be the right thing for Baleba's career? Because like you said there, it's an extremely stacked midfield. I think going into any Arsenal game, you know more or less what that midfield is going to be, and even the competition there is really, really strong. Do you think he could struggle for game time if he did make that step up this soon?
Yeah, it's a legitimate concern there, but I think he's that good where he'd probably have the belief that he could go in and get a game. Arteta also can perhaps switch it up, and depending on the opponents, sometimes Rice kind of plays as a 6, sometimes he plays as a 8. I think Arteta would ideally use him a little bit higher up than he did play at West Ham, but I think Baleba's quite adaptable in terms of he can probably play a couple of roles in that midfield as well. So, but I don't imagine that Arsenal will be the only club it will come in from. I think a lot of Premier League clubs will be looking at. I think clubs in the continent will be looking at him as well. You talk about Real Madrid perhaps looking at Enzo Fernandez. Yes, I think Baleba's a player who could go and play at that level. Same with Barcelona. I think the price that Brighton would want would probably rule out clubs in Italy, just in terms of the transfer fee. But yeah, he can. I think he can go and play anywhere in Europe. I'm really excited to see actually how he performs consistently over the course of this season, because I think this is his real breakthrough year. I know he played in the Premier League last season after coming from Lille, but this is his real, big season after he's settled in.
I think if Brighton can create any sort of a bidding war like they did for Moises Caicedo a couple of years ago, they could be in for a very, very big payday, and certainly a player who would deserve to attract that sort of money. Aston Villa are in talks with Morgan Rogers over a new deal, and it's a little bit of a surprise. Rogers still has 5 years left on his deal at Aston Villa. It runs until 2029, but according to Capology, his salary is only at about €24,000, which I suppose isn't surprising considering he came in a young player from the Championship, an unknown quantity from a Premier League perspective. Of course, was phenomenal and put up brilliant numbers at Middlesbrough. But with 5 years left in his deal, it shouldn't seem like it's a priority for Villa, but it looks like they want to reward him for what he's done for them so far. And they signed him for just €9.4 million, and his market value has already soared to €22 million. But clearly, that's not what Villa are focused on. They don't have any plans to make a little bit of money off him. How impressed have you been with Morgan Rogers, and how quickly he's been able to establish himself as a quality Premier League player?
Yeah, really. I wrote a piece about him earlier in the season. He's been outstanding. I'm a bit surprised he's not had a full England call up yet. I think that's just a matter of time. And he's yet another player who's progressed through Man City's academy, who's left and then moved on to do great things. There's been so many of them in recent years. You look at kind of Liam Delap this season at Ipswich, score more goals, as many goals as any under 21 player in top 5 leagues. You've got Jamie Gittins over at Borussia Dortmund, who's also flying this season in the Bundesliga. So yeah, it makes sense. He did only join the club as last January, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure. He came in after impressing against Middlesbrough against Villa in the FA Cup. A new contract will probably be a slight extension, but it'll probably have a much bigger pay rise. It's probably just to keep him happy and show that Villa value what he's doing, and so his agent probably doesn't come in and say, look, we can get more money for him, get more money elsewhere. But it makes sense from Villa's perspective.
He's got 8 goal contributions in his first 20 Premier League games, which I think for any player, if you're coming in as one of the best players from the Bundesliga, from La Liga, from the big leagues across Europe, I think that sort of return, stepping into a league that isn't like any other, is really impressive. But to do it coming up from the Championship, just 21 years of age, recently turned 22, he has a really bright future. And from his perspective, I think Aston Villa is the perfect club to be at, because there aren't a lot of clubs around the place now that you can say confidently have a long-term project there. And like Unai Emery, you can see him staying at Aston Villa for quite a long time. For teams like with United, with Amorim coming in, I know Slot started really well at Liverpool, but Maresca at Chelsea, you don't know how that's going to go. There's no evidence there to look at to say that he'll be around for a while. Whereas with Emery at Villa, it's the complete opposite, and he clearly trusts Morgan Rogers, and he's a player who's slotted seamlessly into that team, and I think will continue to thrive at Aston Villa for quite a while, and is fully deserving of that new contract that they're reportedly looking to give him. Do let us know in the live chat and in the comments down below your thoughts on Morgan Rogers and his time at Aston Villa so far, and also let us know, do you think Jamal Musiala is making the right decision by signing a new contract at Bayern Munich, and do you think Manchester United or Liverpool will be successful in their pursuit of Wolves wingback Rayan Ait-Nouri? Make sure to subscribe as well if you haven't already for more of these daily live streams and plenty of content from our expert team around the globe on the young stars that you want to know more about. Hit the like button if you have enjoyed this stream, but for now, from all